In this video, I'll be presenting on the concept of if and else statements. So I will be using sound objects with them. And I already have some code written here, so I'm just going to go through it really fast. And I just declared this sound object S1, and S1 is a type sound, and it will reference my new sound object, which is a copy of my guitar sound file. And then I'm going to use the explore method on that sound object so that I can view the samples or the values before they are changed. And then I also declared this variable value of the type int and set it equal to 0. So it's going to be, and this is going to be changed inside the for loop body. And then next is my loop, which is going to be a loop through all the indices, and it's going to be a for loop. So I initialize this variable index of the type int to 0 to start at the first index, and then the condition for my for loop is index is less than the s1.get length, which will return the length of my sound object s1, and the body of this for loop will continue executing while this condition is true, and then after each execution of the body, index will be incremented by 1. So at some point, this condition will return false, and the body of my for loop will be skipped, and the execution will continue on with the next line of code. So inside of the body of my for loop, first thing that I'm going to do is get the current value, and the way I do that is using the get sample value at method on my S1 object, and inside the parameter is the location of which I'm going to get the value from. So that's going to be index. So at the current index, the value will be returned, and then value will be set to that current value. And then next, I'm going to change it based on 3 cases. So these 3 cases are made from this index mod 3, which can result in a 0, 1, or a 2. And in this case, the 2 is everything else. And this is an if-else chain because at first, if this condition is true, then this body will execute. But if this condition is false, then the next thing that's going to be checked is the else if condition. So if that one is true, then the body of my else if will be executed. And if it's false, then the body will be skipped and the body of the else will execute. So it's just pretty much like a branching. I could have used 3 separate if statements to be used on each case, but then I would be checking this one and then checking the next if statement and checking the last statement. So this is an efficient way of checking for 3 different cases. So once this one is true, which is going to happen at the first index and every third one afterwards, the body will execute, and I'm going to use the set sample value at method on S1, and that method has 2 parameters: the location of the where I'm going to change the value, and then the new value that's going to be used. So it's just going to be the current value divided by 2. So all of those samples at those indices are going to be, the value will be divided by 2. And then next for the next statement, the else if statement. So those indices that don't satisfy that condition are gonna run the else if body, and I mean they have to satisfy that condition first. So it's gonna be pretty much the indices after the first index, and then every third one after that. And those indices that satisfy that condition will be used in this set sample value at method. So at those locations, the value in those locations at those samples will be divided by 5. And then next, if that index does not satisfy this condition, then that means that index mod 3 is equal to 2, the only other case, and then that body will be skipped, and the execution will continue with this the body of this else statement, and that value in those indices will be set to a value of 0. So this is an if-else chain, and it's a great way to conditionally execute multiple cases. If I had another case, I could include another else if, And if I had like 5 cases, then I would have one if statement, 2 else if statements, and then the last an else statement. So after the body of my for loop, after my for loop finishes executing, after the body of my for loop finishes executing, the next line of code that's going to run is this explore method. So that's going to be to view all the values that have been changed, and by that point, all of the values will be changed by either to either one of these 3 values. So now I just got to compile. All right, and everything works, and then I just got to run. And so this is my guitar sound file before anything is changed. The only thing that's changing is this top part, because this is a stereo sound, so the bottom part is I don't know, it's just the code doesn't work with the bottom part, it just works with the top part. So one way to check if my code worked is I just go to one where the index divided by 3 it results in a remainder of 0, which let's say 33. So at that current index, the value is 2,194, and if I go to that same index over here, we can see that the value got divided by 2, and that's what I wanted. So for the next value, or the next case where the index mod 3 is 1, which is going to be which will happen at index of 34. We're supposed to see that the value gets divided by 5. It's about 3,000 divided by 5 is 600. So that works as well. And then now to check if the last case worked. So those are going to be indices where division by 3 results in a remainder of 2. So 33 divided by 3 will leave me with the remainder of 2. And let's see, so those ones are going to be set to 0. And look, it got set to 0. So all of the cases were used, and the only indices that were not affected were the ones that already were at a value of 0. But as you can see here, the ones that needed to be changed, or the ones that were going to be changed, did get changed. So that's my video, and thanks for watching.